I think we can wrap two of these questions together. And I guess we can start with Amanda, move on to William, and then Umed. So this is a subjective question, but there's two parts of this question. What is the best metric to go by for selecting a pool? And like, how does one find a reliable staking pool? What do you think?
Um, so for me, if I was to put myself in a delegator's shoes, I would um, like poke around on the Ada Pool site or the Pool Tool site and just kind of scroll around to see how different pools' performances are. But really, now I don't know if it's just me, so this is just me talking. Like I want to see what they're kind of about, and so I would go to their website and kind of see how they present themselves and what they want to do or those kind of things, and then go and check back their how big their pool is and how saturated they are and all that kind of stuff. And then for me, like I as an operator try to have a way for them to talk to me. So like, how can you talk to your operator? Do they have like an easy way to talk to them, like a Telegram channel, or do they just have a Twitter thing or that kind of thing? Um, so pool size, that goes to saturation, and then what they're about on their website, and how can I talk to them and connect with them.
Okay. Thank you, Amanda. William?
Now that's probably the single most difficult question from my perspective. You have almost 1,100 pools to choose from. You could use one filter mechanism of which pool has the most stake data. You could look at which pool has made the most ROA, return on stake, within the last 30 days or last epoch. Just like other financial advice, previous things that happened in the past don't guarantee future performance. However, the Cardano project is very reliable once you get over a certain threshold of stake, that you're more likely to make a block, and your next step would then be your fees. So the smaller pools help stabilize the network in effect. However, their pool fee, the minimum fee, the 340 ADA that every pool has to do, when you're really, really small, that starts to eat into the total rewards. And so some of the pools are doing unique things to compensate back, or zero minimum fee or margin. And so then that starts to teeter totter. So are you going purely performance? Are you wanting to go with a smaller pool to help with the, per se, decentralization of Cardano? If you're in that thought process, you need to give us a little bit of time to move forward with the D parameter. I think we're going to 76% in this next epoch. That parameter has only a certain fraction of blocks. So that'd be 26% of the blocks being made by small stake pool operators in the public space. And so for me, navigating and trying to recommend, I think it really comes back to what Deadpool said is, it starts to become personal, who you connect with, who you can communicate with, who you feel comfortable with. Ultimately, you don't lose your money through staking. It's always in your wallet. So the only risk you really have is, will their pool create a block to earn you rewards?
Okay. Thanks, William. And Umed?
Yeah.
What is your criteria?
Yeah, my criteria would be, the first and foremost would be saturation. Because if a pool is close to saturation, it's the easiest thing you can observe by looking at Pool Tool, which is my favorite sort of tool from way back in ITN when we had zero sort of visibility. But yeah, so to Amanda's point, the saturation would be my number one sort of concern. And then I would look at, what kind of sort of, engagement that pool has within the community. And is it a known pool, or is it just a new pool? And that is not to say that new pools are, shouldn't be given opportunities, but if you go with somebody who's been in the space for a while, your people might tend to sort of trust them more, maybe. I don't know. I mean, definitely that's my personal view again. I would not feel comfortable with pools that do not show their face, and that's just so it's because if you're not showing your face, what's going on there, right? Like you're running a pool, you cannot just be like a guy with a picture of somebody else or something like that. So it takes a great amount of courage to actually get out and be public with this stuff. So that speaks a lot to the person's commitment to the space, right? So you cannot be some guy who just packs up and goes, because nobody knows who he is. So that's the thing, and the price, price is an interesting thing, to be honest with you, because, I've done the calculations, and if you translate these fees into how much ROS they lose, right? The difference between a 1% pool, a 5% pool is just, fractions of a percent. Compare that to the daily swings in price of ADA. So we lost like what, 20%. It's like, or 20% gain, right? You compare these costs that you're trying to optimize, and to the underlying asset that you're holding is just basically being a penny wise and pound fooled in a sense, right? So you don't want to optimize them. You do want to optimize them, but you don't want to make them the primary reason why you choose a pool. And block production is very important, to be honest with you, but you have to also look at it from the point of view of statistical significance. Because if I'm a small pool and if I'm just starting, VRF is going to be volatile. Right? If you're small, your expected value, and I created that chart, and then ADA pools just adopted it. There's a normal distribution of how many blocks you produce, and the thing with VRF and uncertainty or variability, the lottery that VRF is that it's just like just think about it as a guy who's holding a gun, but it has a very unstable sort of hand. So sometimes it hits the target, and sometimes it goes to the left and goes to the right. So that's the best way I can think of. So if you're given an expected value of 5 or 6 blocks, you shouldn't basically expect that value every time. There could be days when the pool will naturally get assigned 2 blocks, and when they produce those 2 blocks, you wouldn't know whether they, as a stakeholder, you wouldn't know whether they actually got assigned that many blocks, or the pool operator is really bad and he was drinking or something and he got his pool got damaged. But in the beginning, you wouldn't know those differences, but over time, if he keeps doing that, then he will always lag behind his expected performance. And that's when you basically make a decision and say, okay, that now this data gives me actual, reason to move. But before that, when you see that one guy had, 200%, and then the next a couple of epochs he was below 100%, it's not an indication of his skill set, because that's what the VRF does. And I'm sure that the big pools even feel it, but smaller pools feel it because we have the D parameter that assigns smaller number of blocks. And in terms of blocks themselves, the absolute value doesn't really matter. Really doesn't matter. It's the share of the blocks compared to the number of blocks that have been produced, compared to your stake share in the total number of staked ADA. That basically is that 2 sort of ratios that determine your actual rewards, and you wouldn't know it until the epoch actually ended. So to wrap it all up, I would say that it's the ratio of blocks produced versus expected blocks that needs to be produced that will give you the performance. So there's no difference between a pool that produces his fair share, which is 10 or 8, and a pool that produces 100 or 40, because it's all relative to how much they were supposed to produce.
You had touched on something real quick for, when do you have enough data to move on? And I would say, as a stake pool operator in the ITN, through mainnet candidates, the epochs were every 6 hours, every day, fast intervals. In a society such as now, we're looking for instantaneous feedback. Epoch of 5 days, I'm having a hard time as an operator just being patient through that epoch to build up that historical data set. And so for a delegator trying to choose, I would say at a minimum 4 epochs, so 20 days. So you pretty much need to wait a month before having a real solid data set on performance before pivoting to a different location would be my recommendation.
I mean, statistically, you would want 30 epochs to actually, make sense out of it. And I applaud the effort of, or the data aggregators in the space that, have created sort of, the historical ROS, but those will still be volatile because VRF is volatile every epoch. And it will be more volatile for smaller pools, unfortunately. But as we decrement the D, more and more small pools will be able to actually have more granular way of showing their performance, because instead of getting 2 blocks, they will be getting 5 blocks, and 5 blocks in a if the VRF deviates, like you lose 5, you don't get you don't get 1 block. That's a less in percentage term loss if you don't get assigned that, than if you were assigned 2 blocks and then the VRF decided you'll get 1 block, and that's a 50% performance handicapped. But then again, it's a double-edged sword, because the next epoch or a couple of epochs down the road, you could get 5 blocks, and you were supposed to get like 1, right? And then the pool operators go on Twitter and say, look at us, we got 300%, something like that. So, but anyway.
Yeah.